The ticket price. This does not shock me at all. What did I say earlier? The WNBA was about to F around and find out, and these rival teams were going to be in a lot of trouble. Well, they're finding out.
The arena lights slowly faded as the deafening sound of the crowd echoed throughout the building. At that moment, the WNBA seemed to be reaching heights the league had chased for years. For a long time, women's basketball fought endlessly for mainstream attention, larger audiences, sold-out arenas, and genuine cultural relevance. Then suddenly, everything appeared to change overnight. Television ratings exploded, tickets sold out across the country, and social media buzz surrounding the league spread everywhere. Sports fans everywhere were finally paying attention, and it felt like a historic breakthrough for women's basketball. But then came one quiet announcement that completely shifted the narrative. A superstar player would miss several weeks, and that single piece of news sent a massive financial shockwave across the entire league. What once looked like unstoppable momentum suddenly appeared incredibly fragile. League executives, analysts, and fans were forced to confront an uncomfortable reality. Was the WNBA truly growing into a sustainable sports powerhouse, or had the entire rise been built around one transcendent superstar? The sudden collapse in demand revealed a truth many people inside basketball were hesitant to admit publicly.
The Caitlin Clark effect has been a net positive for the WNBA and all of its teams. But the star guard expected to miss a minimum of 2 weeks. The league will see the flip side of her impact, and there are already initial data points. This is front office sports, no conspiracies, no BS from them. Statistical data.
Before any reports about her absence surfaced, the WNBA was experiencing a level of excitement the league had never seen before. Every Indiana Fever game instantly became one of the hottest tickets in sports. Fans rushed to buy seats, with many paying more than $80 just for basic entry, while premium courtside seats sold for even higher prices. The hype around the team became impossible to ignore, creating enormous excitement everywhere they played. Rival teams and arena operators quickly recognized the opportunity and started making aggressive business decisions to capitalize on the growing attention. One major example came from the Chicago Sky. The organization made the bold decision to move its highly anticipated matchup against the Fever from the smaller Wintrust Arena to the massive United Center, a venue capable of holding more than 21,000 fans. The United Center is normally reserved for NBA games and major concerts, making the move incredibly risky. This was not just a simple scheduling adjustment. It was a huge financial gamble and a clear sign that one player alone possessed the drawing power to fill an arena of that size. Teams and executives throughout the league were depending heavily on her unmatched popularity to attract massive crowds and generate huge revenue.
Time to hit the panic button. 48 hours after news hits that Caitlin Clark is injured and she'll be missing 2 weeks, the market has responded and the market has told the WNBA, we don't want this. We want her, but we don't want this.
Everything changed the moment the news officially broke. The player who had become the face of the league, the superstar responsible for drawing enormous crowds and skyrocketing ticket prices, was suddenly sidelined. As soon as fans learned she would not be playing, the market reacted immediately. The response was harsh, instant, and impossible to ignore. The excitement disappeared almost overnight, and the public delivered a brutally honest message. Fans were not simply investing in the WNBA product itself, they were investing in her presence specifically. Without her on the court, interest dropped dramatically. The financial consequences became devastating almost immediately. The Chicago Sky vs. Indiana Fever game at the United Center, which had once featured premium-priced tickets, saw the cheapest seats collapse from $86 to only $25 in a shocking overnight decline. That represented an incredible 71% drop in value and transformed what looked like a historic business success into a major financial concern. And the situation was not limited to one game alone. Similar crashes in ticket prices occurred during other Fever road games as well, including matchups against the Washington Mystics, proving how heavily the league's recent success depended on one superstar attraction.
Chicago Sky can't sell out their own 9,000-something seat arena like it is. They couldn't when they were kind of decent. They're a dumpster fire now. And now that Caitlin Clark is injured, the ticket prices for the Fever and Sky game just plummeted to Hades.
The Chicago Sky already struggled to consistently fill their own arena even before the team's recent decline. Now, with Caitlin Clark sidelined, the situation became even worse. Ticket prices for the Fever vs. Sky matchup dropped dramatically almost overnight. What had previously been a highly demanded game with entry prices around $41 suddenly crashed to just $22. That represented a brutal 47% decline in value, leaving fans, analysts, and likely team executives stunned by how quickly interest disappeared. Looking at several major Indiana Fever games over a short stretch, the average ticket price had once climbed to nearly $137 before falling sharply to around $80 following the injury announcement. That marked a massive 42% collapse in only a few weeks and highlighted just how severe the market reaction truly was. These were not normal fluctuations or small declines in fan interest. The message from consumers was loud and unmistakable. Without Clark on the floor, demand dropped instantly. The excitement surrounding the game seemed to disappear before tip-off even arrived, creating a noticeably different atmosphere inside arenas. The sudden shift exposed a difficult reality for the league. Much of the WNBA's explosive growth, national attention, and soaring popularity appeared heavily centered around one extraordinary superstar rather than widespread league-wide momentum.
Games over the next 2 weeks have dropped 42% since Caitlin Clark's injury announcement, an average ticket price of $137, all the way down to $80.
This situation was far more serious than simply losing a star player for a few games. It became a harsh exposure of the WNBA's deeper structural weaknesses. The numbers themselves painted an unforgiving picture and confirmed what many people around basketball had quietly suspected for months. Caitlin Clark was not just another talented player in the league. She had become the primary engine driving the WNBA's popularity, attention, and business success. The league's recent surge in ticket sales, sold-out arenas, social media buzz, and national media coverage seemed overwhelmingly connected to her presence. For months, many celebrated the WNBA's rise as proof of long-term sustainable growth and expanding interest in women's basketball. However, this moment revealed how much of that momentum was tied directly to one player. The league suddenly appeared to lack enough equally recognizable stars capable of maintaining that same level of excitement whenever its biggest attraction was unavailable. Without Clark on the court, the dramatic fall in demand exposed just how dependent the league had become on one singular talent to maintain its current momentum and financial success.
People are selling their tickets, definitely can't get face value, so what do? They just continue to lower and lower and lower and lower and lower the price. This isn't all resellers, folks. Hate to break it to you. A majority of these are everyday normal people. A majority of these are everyday normal people who watch Caitlin Clark in Iowa, watch her in her first year in Indiana, said, man, I want to watch that. I want to go to those games. I want to experience that. They won't be able to experience it. Time to sell.
The entire situation forced the league into a serious and unavoidable reality check. If one short absence could create such a dramatic collapse in demand, it raised difficult questions about the overall strength of the WNBA's foundation. Concerns quickly emerged about the league's long-term stability and whether its recent momentum could survive the normal challenges that every professional sport eventually faces. The issue extended far beyond a few regular season games. It affected the entire business ecosystem surrounding the league. Even marquee matchups that had been promoted as symbols of the WNBA's rapid growth suddenly lost significant value once Clark was unavailable. Games like Chicago Sky vs. Indiana Fever, once viewed as major showcase events for the future of women's basketball, no longer carried the same excitement or energy. The vision of sold-out arenas and electric crowds quickly turned into scenes filled with noticeable empty seats and far quieter atmospheres. The league's heavy reliance on Clark's drawing power became impossible to ignore, not only through collapsing ticket prices but also through the dramatic change in crowd energy and overall attention. This was not a typical sports injury situation where fans simply accepted the absence and continued showing up out of loyalty. The numbers made it clear that Clark's absence created a genuine business crisis for the league. With so much of the WNBA's recent success concentrated around one superstar, many teams suddenly found themselves struggling to maintain the momentum that had once seemed unstoppable.
I mean, it's more statistical proof, data, to confirm exactly what we've been saying, that Caitlin Clark is driving this whole ship, this whole bus. She's driving it. Everybody else, get in the back. Get in the back.
With Caitlin Clark suddenly sidelined, the spotlight immediately shifted toward Angel Reese. Many people believed she was the obvious player to step forward and help carry the league's growing popularity during Clark's absence. Reese undoubtedly possessed star power of her own, with a bold personality, trend-setting image, and a strong off-court brand that connected deeply with a large section of basketball fans. She constantly remained part of major media conversations and never hesitated to highlight the impact she believed she had on the league's success. Reese had previously made confident statements suggesting that fans tuned in specifically to watch her, reinforcing the idea that she could stand alone as one of the WNBA's biggest attractions. As the league searched for another superstar capable of sustaining its momentum, many people closely watched to see whether Reese's celebrity status and powerful public image could truly generate the same level of ticket sales, excitement, and national attention that Clark had consistently produced throughout the season.
The marquee matchup in the WNBA, like it or love it, rivalry or not, Chicago Sky, Indiana Fever, Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, that is the marquee matchup in the WNBA, and those tickets are crashing just as well. From $86 48 hours ago to $25. And by the time June 7th rolls around, it might cost you a bag of Skittles and some Lay's potato chips to get in there.
However, the numbers quickly began telling a very different and far more uncomfortable story. Once Clark was removed from the spotlight, enormous pressure fell directly onto Reese to prove she could generate the same level of fan interest and business success. So far, the market's response has been difficult to ignore. The excitement surrounding games simply did not remain at the same level without Clark's presence. The Chicago Sky versus Indiana Fever matchup at the United Center had originally been promoted as a massive showcase built around the highly publicized rivalry between Reese and Clark. But the moment Clark was ruled out, ticket demand dropped sharply and much of the anticipation surrounding the game disappeared almost instantly. The massive arena suddenly felt far too large for the occasion as excitement noticeably faded. This trend extended beyond a single game. Other high-profile Fever matchups also experienced major ticket declines despite Reese remaining one of the central promotional figures. Ticket prices that once sold for around $41 dropped to nearly $22, representing a 47% decrease and highlighting a significant difference in fan demand compared to games featuring Clark. Even in cities where Reese played a major role in the storylines and media coverage, the same level of urgency from fans simply was not there.
And we have plenty of evidence that proves Angel Reese is not qualified to carry the league.
Then came the uncomfortable silence surrounding the entire situation. While Angel Reese had always been outspoken about her popularity, influence, and the attention she believed she brought to the league, she said very little publicly about the dramatic drop in ticket sales following Clark's injury. That silence left fans and league observers drawing their own conclusions about what the situation truly revealed. Some viewed it as a strategic decision to avoid difficult questions during a tense moment for the league, while others believed it exposed the enormous pressure Reese was suddenly facing behind the scenes. Regardless of the reason, the circumstances placed Reese in an extremely difficult position. She remained a major celebrity and one of the most recognizable faces in women's basketball, but expectations for her to single-handedly maintain the league's booming momentum became incredibly unrealistic. The numbers ultimately painted a very clear picture. Reese alone could not replace the economic impact Clark had on ticket sales and fan demand. The difference between Reese's undeniable fame and Clark's unmatched ability to drive massive attendance became increasingly obvious, creating a difficult reality that both the league and Reese herself would eventually need to confront.
The get-in tickets for the Fever's rivalry game against the Chicago Sky on June 7th are down 71% from $86 to $25.
Many people naturally point toward everything Angel Reese accomplished during her college career. Her unforgettable moments at LSU, viral highlights seen by millions, and enormous social media following made her one of the biggest names in women's basketball long before entering the WNBA. On the surface, it seemed reasonable to assume that level of popularity would immediately translate into professional success at the same scale. Many believed her celebrity status and powerful personal brand would generate the same overwhelming attention and fan demand throughout the league. However, the reality unfolding inside the WNBA has looked very different. Caitlin Clark's presence has shown an almost unmatched ability to consistently fill arenas, create historic ticket demand, and drive massive league-wide attention wherever she plays. Reese, despite her fame and undeniable charisma, has not yet produced the same economic impact when it comes to attendance and ticket sales across the league. This is not meant to dismiss Reese's talent, competitiveness, or influence as a public figure. She remains one of the most recognizable athletes in women's basketball and continues to attract major media attention. Still, the situation exposed how heavily the WNBA depended on Clark specifically and revealed the limitations of relying on even its second most popular star to maintain the same level of momentum.
These prices are going to continue to drop.
Wednesday's Fever game versus the Mystics at CFG Bank Arena in Baltimore has a get-in price of $22.
The market's reaction ultimately highlighted an important distinction that many fans and analysts often overlook. There is a major difference between being famous and being a true box office draw. An athlete can have millions of followers, dominate headlines, and remain constantly visible online while still not possessing the ability to consistently drive massive attendance or television viewership. That difficult lesson became increasingly clear for the WNBA during Clark's absence. The league appeared to believe that Reese could help shoulder much of the economic pressure and maintain excitement even without its biggest superstar available. However, the numbers suggested otherwise. Ticket prices dropped, attendance declined, and the atmosphere surrounding games noticeably changed once Clark was no longer playing.
This game get-in was like $100 at one stage. This was $100 at one stage. Let's go one ticket. Or well, is it two tickets? 2 tickets. Let's just see what it costs for court. Look at how many, oh my God, look at how many people are selling tickets.
Despite her enormous popularity and media presence, could not stop that decline on her own. This issue extended beyond individual player comparisons and raised larger questions about the league's overall business strategy. The WNBA's dependence on a very small number of marketable stars suddenly appeared far riskier than many people had previously acknowledged.
But I'm like, I didn't realize just how bad it was going to get. I didn't realize how bad. Like, they all moved arenas and everybody's trying to sell their tickets. Like, if you look, the get-in price is $23.80. $23.80 is the get-in price for tomorrow night.
Another major issue also started gaining attention as the situation unfolded. Once the league's primary attraction was removed, conversations shifted toward the overall quality and appeal of the WNBA product itself. Fans and critics began asking difficult questions about why the league seemed so dependent on one player to maintain excitement and national attention. If the product was truly as strong as many claimed, why did interest drop so dramatically when one superstar was absent? The enormous expectations suddenly placed on Reese only highlighted the pressure created by the league's lack of broader star power and consistent fan engagement across multiple teams. It became increasingly obvious that popularity on social media and public fame alone do not automatically translate into ticket sales or financial success in professional sports. The situation exposed how vulnerable the league could become whenever its biggest attraction was unavailable, revealing the urgent need for stronger overall league-wide appeal rather than relying so heavily on a single superstar presence.
Even though the mainstream media wants us to believe that Angel Reese is a huge star, we have years of evidence that proves otherwise. Like I say all the time, there is a huge difference between a star and a draw. You can be a star, you can be famous, and still not be able to draw flies to a fresh turf.
The financial consequences created by Clark's absence reached far beyond declining ticket prices and empty seats inside arenas. The impact spread throughout nearly every important source of revenue connected to the league and its teams. Fewer fans attending games meant significant losses in merchandise sales, food purchases, drinks, parking revenue, and other arena-related income streams that organizations heavily rely on throughout a season. Concession stands that were once crowded suddenly became far quieter, creating major concerns for both teams and venue operators. At the same time, reports suggested the WNBA was already dealing with major financial struggles, including losses estimated at around $40 million in the previous year alone. That reality increased pressure on league executives and ownership groups connected to WNBA franchises. NBA owners and investors who financially supported these teams reportedly began asking more serious questions about the league's long-term profitability and future business model. Concerns grew about whether the WNBA could eventually become a sustainable financial success or whether it would continue depending heavily on outside support to survive. For many observers, Clark's absence exposed just how fragile the league's financial situation truly remained beneath all the recent excitement and publicity.
Angel Reese and the WNBA have been using race to bring awareness to an incredibly bad product. Once you remove Caitlin Clark from the equation, there's no reason for people to watch this league, which is why people haven't been watching Angel Reese throughout her career.
Another major concern hanging over the league is the upcoming negotiation for a new media rights agreement. This deal is expected to become one of the most important financial lifelines for the WNBA's future growth and long-term stability. The value of that agreement now appears heavily connected to Caitlin Clark's ability to consistently remain on the court and continue driving massive television audiences. If the deal ultimately falls short of expectations because the league's biggest attraction is unavailable or unable to sustain current viewership numbers, the consequences could be severe. Teams could face tighter financial limitations, players could see fewer resources invested into the league, and pressure would intensify on the WNBA to prove it can become self-sustaining without relying so heavily on outside support. The entire business structure built around projections of rising popularity and increasing profitability suddenly looks far more fragile than many originally believed. Clark's presence has become so important that much of the league's financial optimism now appears directly tied to one superstar's health, availability, and overall impact on public interest.
They're losing merchandise sales, they're losing food sales, they're losing beverage sales. They're losing big. They took a big gamble to get into that arena, and they're losing big because it's not going to be full, and those people aren't going to be buying things there.
Another growing concern involves the international basketball market and the opportunities potentially available overseas for top WNBA stars like Caitlin Clark. Reports and speculation have suggested that certain international leagues backed by enormous financial resources could offer contracts worth tens of millions of dollars annually. Some estimates have even claimed Clark could potentially earn around $20 million per year playing abroad, a figure the WNBA simply cannot compete with under its current salary structure and financial model. The possibility of the league's biggest star leaving for a significantly larger payday overseas no longer feels impossible or unrealistic. Instead, it highlights how competitive the global basketball landscape has become. If Clark or other elite players eventually decide they can earn far more money elsewhere, the WNBA could face enormous challenges in maintaining fan interest, attracting major sponsors, and securing valuable television partnerships. Losing a player of Clark's magnitude would represent far more than a simple roster change. It could seriously damage the league's momentum and threaten the very foundation of its recent growth and popularity.
They're getting a new media rights deal. That thing won't be worth shit if Caitlin Clark was to either get really injured and couldn't play or decided to just say, I'm not going to play here anymore. I'm going overseas. Where, by the way, they would pay her, my God, some of those countries might pay her $20 million a year to come over there and play. And I'm not.
The WNBA's current situation strongly resembles challenges other sports leagues have faced after becoming heavily dependent on one transcendent superstar. Major League Soccer experienced something very similar after the arrival of Lionel Messi. Whenever Messi misses matches, ticket prices often drop significantly, and opposing teams struggle to maintain the same excitement and attendance they expected when his appearance was originally scheduled. The WNBA now appears trapped in a similarly risky position. The league's dependence on one or two major stars has exposed just how dangerous it can be to concentrate so much attention and financial momentum around a very small number of players. Over the years, the league has tried promoting multiple stars in hopes of building a broader collection of marketable personalities capable of attracting nationwide interest. However, no player has yet been able to replicate the same impact Clark consistently delivers on ticket sales, television ratings, and overall fan engagement. The situation has made it increasingly obvious that relying so heavily on one superstar creates enormous long-term risks for the league's future stability.
It's going to be real tough because even if you're out 3 weeks, you're missing a lot of a real portion of the year. All right. The ticket prices. This does not shock me at all. What did I say earlier? The WNBA was about to F around and find out, and these rival teams were going to be in a lot of trouble. Well, they're finding out.
Concerns surrounding the WNBA's future become even more serious when considering how much value now depends on Caitlin Clark's continued presence. Many people believe the league's upcoming media rights deal would lose significant value if Clark suffered a major injury or eventually chose to leave for a more lucrative opportunity overseas. International leagues with massive financial backing could potentially offer salaries the WNBA simply cannot match, creating a very real fear that its biggest superstar could eventually decide to play elsewhere. This overwhelming dependence on one player has even sparked controversial conversations within basketball circles. Some observers have argued that the league should go out of its way to protect Clark on the court through favorable officiating or so-called superstar calls, similar to the treatment legendary athletes sometimes receive in other major sports leagues. The idea is that keeping Clark healthy, active, and constantly featured in games is now viewed as essential to maintaining the league's popularity and financial momentum. Whether people agree with that idea or not, the mere existence of such discussions reveals how deeply aware many around the league are of its current vulnerability. The WNBA's dependence on a single transformational superstar has become impossible to ignore, and the risks connected to that reality continue growing larger.
She was the league. Keep in mind, my point I'm trying to get to is when it came out that the league lost $40 million last year, NBA owners that own portions of these WNBA teams were starting to get angry and ask a lot of questions about when is this league ever going to make money. So that tells you there was starting to be a little life support situation happening when the owners were starting to get angry about never making a profit on this league.
The crisis created by Caitlin Clark's absence has now evolved into a much larger and more serious question for the WNBA's future. The league must figure out how to grow beyond dependence on a single superstar and build a stronger foundation capable of surviving moments like this. It can no longer rely on simply hoping another generational talent will eventually emerge to carry the same level of popularity and financial impact. The recent numbers clearly showed that even some of the league's most recognizable stars could not prevent ticket demand and fan interest from falling sharply once Clark was unavailable. That reality exposed a major weakness in the WNBA's current business structure. The league now faces the challenge of creating a broader collection of marketable stars and spreading attention more evenly across teams and players. Without that kind of long-term strategy, the WNBA risks repeating this same cycle every time one of its biggest attractions misses games. The situation is no longer just about injuries or short-term attendance declines. It has become a much deeper issue tied directly to the league's overall business model and future sustainability.
With Caitlin Clark, they can make money with the new media rights deal. If that was to fall through for some reason, the league is cooked. Close it down. Or Caitlin Clark could, I don't know, call up Elon, start her own league.
The WNBA is now facing critical questions about how it plans to secure its future, strengthen its foundation, and create long-term stability moving forward. Clark's temporary absence exposed vulnerabilities that many people around the league may not have fully recognized before. As the excitement surrounding the league begins settling back into reality, the pressure for meaningful structural change has become impossible to ignore. The consequences of failing to adapt could be severe for the league's long-term success. More than ever, the WNBA's future appears dependent on its ability to diversify its appeal and reduce its overwhelming reliance on one player. If the league cannot successfully build broader fan engagement and elevate more stars capable of attracting national attention, it may continue facing the same instability whenever its biggest names are unavailable. The urgency for change has never been clearer, and the league's ability to thrive independently may ultimately depend on how effectively it responds to this moment.
Anybody with a connected brainstem knows that Caitlin Clark is far better of a basketball player and has made such a tremendous impact in a greater number, more so than Angel Reese. Everybody knows that. Her college career was better. The stadium sales, the WNBA popularity has gone up because Caitlin.
The market's reaction ultimately delivered a very clear and undeniable verdict regarding Caitlin Clark's impact on the WNBA. Not through opinions or debates, but through ticket sales, television interest, and financial data that revealed just how valuable her presence has become to the league. Clark's legendary college career already hinted at the kind of influence she could eventually have at the professional level, and now those expectations appear fully confirmed. Once she was sidelined, Indiana Fever ticket prices dropped dramatically, including reports of home ticket values falling by more than 40%. The highly promoted Chicago Sky matchup also experienced a massive overnight decline in demand after her absence was announced. Games that once promised packed arenas and electric crowds suddenly struggled to maintain the same atmosphere and attendance levels. Meanwhile, players like Angel Reese and several other talented stars continued receiving major attention, but the numbers consistently showed that none of them generated the same level of ticket demand, fan engagement, or financial impact as Clark.